not going to continue to give the false hope that they've been giving us. It's all BS. It's nonsense. It's false hope to get people to keep showing up, keep buying tickets. They got us content creators waiting and hoping, hey, they said she might be. This is the empty time. This is the time for practice that she might return.
I'm here to tell you, it looked like the Indiana Fever is in some serious hot water yet again, man, because another Indiana Fever player has officially been ruled out. And I'm telling you right now, it's looking real spooky, and I smell a tank going down. Is they about to tank this season to try to get in the lottery to get somebody in this draft? And to be crazy, it really ain't nobody good in the draft. Maybe 3-4 players, which we'll probably make another video about that.
Did the Indiana Fever just lie to millions of fans about Caitlin Clark's injury? Because the deeper you dig into this story, the stranger it gets. At first, it looked like a simple setback. A minor injury that would keep the WNBA's biggest star off the court for a couple weeks. But then the excuses started changing, the timeline stopped making sense, and suddenly, what should have been a straightforward recovery turned into a full-blown scandal. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's the heartbeat of women's basketball right now. The name that fills arenas, the reason networks even care about WNBA ratings, the face plastered on every highlight reel. And yet here we are, watching her season dissolve into confusion, cover-ups, and a front office that fans say is treating her like a PR prop instead of a superstar. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is about trust. It's about whether the Indiana Fever, and maybe the league itself, just got caught red-handed lying to their own fans. And what comes next might change Caitlin Clark's entire career. To really understand why fans are so furious, we need to rewind the clock and look at how this all began. From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped onto a WNBA court, something felt different. This wasn't the usual rookie story of a young player slowly finding her rhythm. No, Caitlin arrived like a shockwave, a once-in-a-generation star who didn't just play the game, she changed it. Her debut wasn't just another game on the schedule. It was an event. Cameras everywhere. Crowds that looked more like NBA playoffs than a regular season WNBA matchup. The energy was electric. Fans weren't just cheering. They were witnessing history in the making. And almost instantly, Caitlin Clark went from highly touted rookie to the face of the entire league. Within weeks, records that had stood untouched for decades were falling one after another. Her three-pointers weren't just shots. They were viral moments. Her court vision wasn't just impressive, it was must-see TV. Jersey sales skyrocketed to the point where even established veterans, players who had been in the league for 10 years, couldn't believe what was happening. And then came the crowds. Entire arenas filled with people who admitted they'd never watched a WNBA game in their lives. Parents bringing their kids, college fans following her from Iowa, NBA fans curious to see what all the noise was about. Suddenly, ticket resale prices for Fever games were rivaling major NBA matchups. Every city Caitlin traveled to, it was the same story. Sellouts, packed arenas, lines stretching around the block just to catch a glimpse of her warm-up. The WNBA had spent decades fighting for mainstream attention, struggling to hold on to fans in a crowded sports market. But Caitlin Clark flipped that narrative almost overnight. She wasn't just boosting the Fever, she was dragging the entire league into the spotlight. For the first time in years, the WNBA looked unstoppable. But here's the dangerous truth that no one wanted to admit at the time. All that hype, all that momentum, all those millions of new eyes glued to their screens. It wasn't spread across the league. It wasn't evenly balanced between teams or shared among a dozen stars. It was all balanced precariously on one player's shoulders. Caitlin Clark wasn't just playing basketball. She was carrying the WNBA's future in real time. And as fans would soon find out, that made her both the league's greatest hope and its greatest vulnerability. So when news broke that she'd picked up an injury, fans were concerned but not panicked. After all, injuries happen. Teams usually announce it, give a rough timeline, and move on. But instead of clarity, what the Fever delivered was confusion. Coach Stephanie White went on camera, smiled for the reporters, and gave a tidy little story about Clark tweaking something in practice around August 7th. They said she was day-to-day. They said she'd be back soon. Even ESPN circled August 12th as a likely return date. Natasha Howard told reporters, "See you soon, Cece." It all sounded reassuring, almost too reassuring. Because while the Fever were selling one story, the internet was telling another. Fans dug up video from August 7th, the exact day Clark was supposedly injured. And there she was, walking around Phoenix smooth as ever, rocking a Prada bag that cost more than some cars. No limp, no wince, no signs of pain. So what was it? A miracle Prada bag? Or a front office spinning a fairy tale? That was the first crack. And once fans saw it, they couldn't unsee it. Week after week, the updates around Caitlin Clark's injury didn't bring clarity. They only added confusion. At first, it sounded minor. Day to day, they said, just a small setback. Fans held their breath, but they weren't too worried. After all, day to day usually means a quick return. maybe missing a game or two at most. But then the story started to shift. Suddenly, day-to-day turned into out indefinitely. No explanation, no transparency, just a vague phrase that felt more like a smokescreen than an update. Still, fans tried to stay hopeful. Surely the team was being cautious, right? Surely this was just about protecting their star. Except the contradictions didn't stop. One moment, reporters had Caitlyn listed as a game-time decision, fueling speculation that she might finally be making her comeback. Fans got excited, tickets were sold, viewers tuned in. But then, almost in the same breath, Coach Stephanie White admitted after practice that Caitlyn hadn't even stepped on the court. Not once. Not in drills, not in scrimmage, nothing. It was whiplash. One headline promised her return. The next interview pulled the rug out. And after the third or fourth time, fans began to realize something chilling. These weren't just mixed signals. These were deliberate moves. Because every time a glimmer of hope was dangled, excitement spiked. People kept buying tickets. Fans kept showing up to the arena thinking maybe tonight is the night. National broadcasts hyped up the possibility, only for Caitlyn to sit in street clothes on the bench, waving but never playing. The inconsistency wasn't just frustrating, it felt insulting. As if the Fever front office thought their own fan base was too naive to notice the contradictions. Like they could keep feeding scraps of false hope, and fans would just smile, pay, and wait. But fans aren't blind. They saw the patterns. And what started as concern for Caitlyn's health quickly turned into anger toward the very people who were supposed to be protecting her. And that anger was only the beginning. Then came the reporters. Instead of demanding answers, some of them looked like they were auditioning for comedy shows. Scott Agnes, a guy fans once trusted, actually laughed while describing Caitlyn's unlucky injury. Laughed about the biggest star in the league, sidelined in her prime. Fans couldn't believe it. Social media exploded, calling it clown behavior, calling for boycotts, accusing local reporters of being nothing more than PR mouthpieces for the team. And as if that wasn't bad enough, fans started pointing to a much darker theory. Maybe the injury in practice never happened at all. Maybe the real moment was when assistant coach Brianne January appeared to step on Caitlyn's foot during a game weeks earlier. The clip resurfaced, shared thousands of times, with fans asking, "Why is nobody talking about this?" That's when the narrative took a dark turn. It wasn't just about an unlucky injury anymore. It started to feel like something far worse. Sabotage. Fans began connecting the dots, and the picture wasn't pretty. Rumors spread that the Fever had been pushing Caitlyn too hard behind the scenes. Reports suggested her training sessions had gone from intense to borderline punishing, with an obsession on forcing her body to bulk up faster than it was ready for. Sure, adding strength matters in a league this physical, but anyone who has ever trained knows the truth. You don't build muscle overnight without consequences. Push too fast, too hard, and the body breaks down. And suddenly, Caitlyn's injury didn't look like a freak accident. It looked like bad planning, or worse, reckless planning. The more fans looked back, the more suspicious it felt. Why was there such a rush? Why was every update contradictory? And why did it feel like the Fever were treating the WNBA's biggest star not as a person, but as an experiment? Meanwhile, every time Caitlyn spoke publicly about her recovery, the unease only deepened. She wasn't herself. Gone was the fiery, authentic Caitlyn who lit up press conferences with sharp honesty and competitive fire. Instead, her words sounded rehearsed, polished, as if handed to her minutes before stepping to the microphone. "I'm working hard, feeling good, just unlucky." The exact same phrases fans had already heard from Fever staff, repeated like lines from a play. Over and over. It didn't sound like Caitlyn speaking from the heart. It sounded like a PR intern holding cue cards off camera. And fans noticed. They always notice. At that point, concern for Caitlyn's health turned into something heavier. Betrayal. Betrayal that their star, the league star, wasn't being protected. Betrayal that the organization they supported seemed more interested in controlling a narrative than caring for the player who built their ticket sales. The whispers grew louder. Was Caitlyn Clark being silenced? Was she trapped inside a machine more focused on selling hope than telling the truth? For the Fever, it was the moment everything shifted. They hadn't just lost Caitlyn's presence on the court, they were losing the trust of the very fans who had been ready to follow her anywhere. And once trust breaks, it's almost impossible to repair. Trust in the Fever collapsed. Fans weren't buying the injury timeline. They weren't buying the optimistic comments. They weren't buying the local reporters' smirks. Every new update was met with skepticism, memes, and outrage. And Caitlyn Clark herself, she looked trapped. Too professional to call out her own coach mid-season, too valuable to the league to risk being painted as difficult, forced to smile and nod while her season unraveled in confusion. The saddest part? She wasn't just losing games. She was losing control of her own story. What happens next? So what now? Two paths stand ahead. One, the Fever finally come clean, admit they botched the handling of their star player, and actually prioritize her health before anything else. That's the only way to win back trust. Or two, they keep lying, they keep spinning, and eventually the truth blows up in their face. Because fans aren't stupid. They've got receipts, they've got footage, and they're not going to forget. But here's the nightmare scenario everyone's afraid to say out loud. What if Caitlin Clark's injury is worse than anyone admits? What if the rush training, the conflicting timelines, and the cover-ups end up cutting her career short? If that happens, it won't just be an Indiana Fever scandal. It will be remembered as the moment the WNBA destroyed its own golden goose. And the backlash, from fans, from sponsors, from the media, will be historic. So ask yourself, if the Indiana Fever are willing to spin stories about their biggest star, what else are they hiding? Because Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's the reason this league is even being talked about on a national stage. Without her, attendance drops, ratings tank, and the so-called breakthrough season collapses. And yet her own team is treating her injury like a PR game. Is this just incompetence? Or is it intentional sabotage? The only thing we know for sure is this: the truth will come out. It always does. The question is, when it does, will Caitlin Clark still have a career left to save?